And good morning. This is Amrita Bradley. I am the creator of Breaking Boxes, and I've got the most awesome interview today. So, today I'm interviewing the most wonderful lady, Claudia Schilling, and she is the founder of Orgasmic Aging. Now, the reason I'm so excited about this interview is because I've always been brought up with a negative view of aging, and since meeting this woman, that has just completely cracked open. And I just can't wait to share the wisdom this lady has to offer. So, how you doing, Claudia?
Thank you for that amazing introduction. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Amrita. And you're so right. There's so much cultural, historical conditioning around attitude towards aging. And as women, we all need to grow a pair of ovaries and take our living and aging back.
Absolutely. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into, being passionate about women's aging?
Sure. So I am 55, almost 56 years old. I am 7 years post-menopause. And I came into this space because my own experience of perimenopause was like a ship with no light, sailing through the oceans with absolutely no idea of how to navigate this really significant transition for women. And it wasn't until pioneers in this space of aging and menopause taught me how to turn my experience of aging on its head, how to turn my experience of my attitudes, my beliefs around aging, and my connection to my body and my sensuality and my own internal innate wisdom, which every woman has, when they transformed my experience of midlife, and on top of the science around aging and how to be fit and healthy and the leader of our own life. I was just so compelled to make that my career going forward, because there's so much bullshit out there around what women can expect. Australia, just using Australia as an example, we hit the $1 billion mark in terms of plastic surgery and cosmetic surgery back in 2017. And we are way behind the other leaders in this space in terms of this drive to chase this fountain of youth and to make us look younger, when we have this amazing vitality and power inside of us as women, irrespective of our wrinkles. And so something needs to change. And we as women, as a group, as a sisterhood, need to take responsibility for changing the story and changing our own experience and how we become leaders of our own life in terms of our health, in terms of our hormonal experience and our pleasure and our attitude towards life and aging and death.
So, Claudia, what kind of women would be looking for the services of a midlife power and passion coach? Tell me about that sort of person.
Sure. Passion, pleasure, power, yes, all of that. Uh, so, in a nutshell, I support women to go from feeling old to feeling orgasmic. And would it help you if I explain in like a couple of sentences why orgasmic aging? Because that'll
Sure,
explain the
would love
approach
to hear
to
it.
coaching
Yeah.
as well. Aging, obviously, it's such a taboo area. We often don't talk about it as women. It's we fear it. We fear becoming less beautiful. We fear becoming less vital. Orgasmic, orgasm, le petit mort, which means the little death. Orgasmic means surrender, because to be orgasmic, you have to surrender, you have to be relaxed, you have to get out of your thinking mind. And the le petit mort, the little death, midlife is about the death of an old way of being or not a phase of life. And it's an opportunity for a rebirth. So the orgasmic aging, even though it seems like an oxymoron, is about putting orgasmic, a liberated, relaxed, surrendered, enjoyable approach, honest and direct approach to aging.
Mm.
So the women I support are women who want that in their life. They're ravenous to realize their potential, but maybe they're feeling old, a bit invisible, struggling with their sex life, either with themselves or with their partner, no libido. Their mindset, they're self-doubting, they wonder if they're past their peak, but they know there's more. I support them to get to that more and to feel so alive and juicy, to reinvigorate their relationships and to put adventure and fun first, front and center of the next phase of their life.
And this is, I want to pick up on something that you said, that, when you were going through your menopausal experience, is that you had no guidance.
Yes.
And I've got to be honest, I'm actually kind of in the same situation because there's not really many women, I think, that are willing to discuss what's going on. Maybe, I certainly couldn't speak to, the women in my family. It wouldn't be a topic of conversation. So then you're going, okay, well, I mean, I'm 47 and
Yeah.
haven't quite hit that stage yet, but it can't be far off. And I'm like, well, I can Google stuff. There might be one or two women I can speak to, but it's not an open topic. It's not something that it's not something that women are actually generally willing to share their experience of, but you're about
Yeah.
to crack that all open, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Look, so many women, with everyone I've spoken to and all my clients, there's probably one woman I've spoken to who had a really empowering relationship with her mum, and her mum talked to her about menopause. But for most of us, it's almost like Voldemort, the he who shall not be named. Like, we don't discuss it. My mother didn't tell me anything about menopause. I didn't even realize she went through it until after the fact. I didn't speak to my girlfriends about it. It was only when I became a leader in this space in terms of trying to change the story around it, and I talked about it with my girlfriends. Like, I'd already gone through menopause when I started talking to my girlfriends about this. So it's what you're describing is so uncommon. And the question I ask all of us is, why weren't we talking about this? It was almost like we're ashamed of this space. But it's similar to our menstrual cycles, like, that where this negativity or this kind of, oh my God, my period, or, it's so hard for women. Like, we've been brought up in this idea of not celebrating the transitions in our life and really owning them and being educated about them and doing them powerfully, but with a sense of a celebration and love and ritual around it. Yeah, it's just,
And
now's the time.
right on that point, right? It's
Yes.
a rite of passage.
Yes.
And I don't think in our society that we spend much, if any, time celebrating rites of passage. So,
Yes.
you're 13 and you get your period, and it's kind of, oh, how embarrassing, hush, hush.
Yes.
Um, and then, you turn 18 and, legally you are supposed to be an adult, which I don't know. I kind of miss that bit where someone was meant to put a book under my pillow when I turned 18, which had the manual for everything on life and everything I was meant to know. Yeah, I didn't get a copy
Absolutely.
of that. So I had to figure stuff out along
I
the
missed that
way.
one too. Yeah, no one
Right.
put a
But
book
hey,
under my pillow.
but you didn't get the book either. Oh, okay. We'll have to have a chat to the book fairy who was meant to tell us all this sort of stuff, but didn't. So anyway, let's change this narrative, right?
Yeah.
What do we want women to know? Where do we want them to get resources? Who can they talk to? What can they talk about? Let's crack it open. Let's go.
Things have changed a lot since I first went through perimenopause 15, 16 years ago. There's definitely more information. We have the internet Bible, or the internet misinformation. Science has advanced. So, hormone replacement therapy is something that's oft talked about. And so my own experience, I went through perimenopause and the menopause phase naturally. It's not to say, like, if I was about to go through perimenopause in today's time, would I do it exactly the same way? I might take advantage of HRT for some of that, because using medicine and the advances in science to alleviate, because women shouldn't have to suffer through midlife. Our bodies are going through changes. Everyone experiences perimenopause differently. Some women sail through and have no symptoms whatsoever.
Now let's talk a little bit about HRT, right? See, we're on
Yep.
the topic. Let's just take a little bit of that.
Yep.
So HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
Yep.
Yep. So it's where you go to your GP, and you take a replacement. Take replacement hormones for the ones that are no longer active in
Yeah.
the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what does that do?
Yeah. So when we enter the perimenopausal phase, so essentially from the age somewhere in our 30s, our sex hormones, which is estrogen, which comes from our follicles, and progesterone, they start to do a bit of a funky dance to retirement. And so by the time we hit menopause, or 12 months after our last cycle, essentially estrogen is like, see you later, out the door, I'm never coming back. And progesterone's pretty much the same. What happens for a certain subset of women is that we can experience certain symptomology, and you've probably heard of some of them around hot flushes, sleeplessness, foggy head, mood swings, hair challenges, aching joints. And so what hormone replacement therapy does is, usually these days it's a combination of both estrogen and progesterone, and you receive very, very small levels of this to alleviate the symptomology during that perimenopausal phase until you get through to the other end with menopause. Now, that's fine, and well, we're much more nuanced in how HRT is applied in terms of the balances. There's still a lot of doctors who have no idea about menopause. So the only thing I would say to anyone watching this who is thinking about HRT is, if you have a GP who happens to be really well versed in women and menopause, then fabulous, go to them. But there are also specific menopause doctors or clinics where they just focus on this transition. And so they have more expertise in this area. Because the caveat I want to say around HRT is not about like receiving support to navigate your symptomology, is that midlife, the menopausal journey, is so much more than just hormones. Like, you are more than just hormones. You are a human, a female having a lived experience of midlife. Menopause is an aging process. So this is around aging. This is around who you are as a woman, navigating the right of your body very clearly telling you you're aging. And I think perimenopause, if you experience symptoms, is the first time you actually get hit on the head with the fact, oh, I'm aging. We'll get
Explain
around
that
to
a
it.
little bit more. So the hit on the head is what exactly? You get a very heavy period, or what's...
Well, it's, so I'll use myself as an example. The moment I realized I was in perimenopause, because my body, you know, either your cycles are starting to become erratic, or for me, it was, I was standing in my cupboard, literally thinking I wanted to murder my husband, figuratively speaking. But in that sense, we just had a fight. I was so enraged. And then at the same time, I felt like I was losing my mind. And I just had this moment standing in front of my cupboard going, what the? And just feeling my whole body, I felt out of control. And I had this instant realization of, oh, this is perimenopause. And the moment I had that realization, this sinking feeling came over my body. And I realized this means I'm getting old. And that's when you realize, and how women experiences that will be different for each of us. It might be the first time you suddenly overheat if you experience hot flushes during perimenopause, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you know, it's that realization you're in perimenopause through whatever physical or emotional or mental system or cognitive trigger you have. But it's the realization, and it's the attachment to aging, and what that suddenly evokes for many of us as women, coming to terms with the fact not only are we aging, we're losing the ability to give birth. Even if you don't want to, have never had children and chose not to, having the choice taken away from you to create is still a grieving process. And the fact that means we're moving towards death. This is a huge, huge, huge transition. And I think it's underplayed by just talking about it in medical terms, in terms of just get some medication, live life, keep on living life as it is. You won't notice anything. There's such a golden opportunity, because this is the mother of all wake-up calls for a woman to really explore her life as a transitional phase and really claim the idea of herself that she always envisaged herself to be, to understand what her potential is, to live life so ferociously for the remainder, even as she ages, but to really step in her power as an aging woman. This is the
Claudia,
opportunity here.
I want to talk about this, this potential. Okay. The
Yes.
reason I want to focus on the potential is because many women have, had their babies, and it may be earlier, maybe a little bit later, whatever it is, right? And they seem to give their lives to their children. It's all about the kids. The kids need to go to piano, and they need to go to school, and they need to do their homework, and they need to go to their friend's house. And, the life of the woman tends to get the personal life of the woman tends to get forgotten a little bit or overshadowed by the needs of everything else. In this day
Sure.
and age, most women need to work,
Yes.
because the cost of living is just right out there.
Exorbitant. Yes.
Exorbitant, and we need to work. Yeah. So now
Yes.
we're trying to manage our own careers, our families, and our own needs. But then, in trying to balance all that, our own needs often are the thing that gets lost in all that. So we're going to fast forward a little bit, and the kids are grown up. They don't need you as much anymore, or you're advanced in your career, and you're not sort of trying to climb the ladder. Take us from there.
There's a couple of things that feed into this. One is what the removal of the sex hormones provides you in terms of impetus. And then the second one is around mindset and the science of aging. So I'll talk about the hormonal one first. And that's around that when we lose estrogen and progesterone, they're on holidays, they've retired. Estrogen is one of those nurturing agreeableness hormones. So as women, being often the caregivers or nurturers in the families, our hormones actually support our desire to support other individuals. And yes, we willingly prioritize ourselves second for our family. Once that lessens, and the same thing with progesterone, which also has a bit of a bite your tongue, keep the peace kind of vibe to it. All of a sudden, it's almost like a lid is removed, and we find ourselves saying things we haven't said before in the past, getting irate or frustrated with people around us, because all of a sudden it almost like reveals a lid on desires and urges that have been simmering under the surface, and willingly so, if we have a family or we've decided to prioritize other things during those formative adult years, but all of a sudden they arise to the surface, right? So there's that. Alongside of that is the idea of mindset and the science. There's a lot of science. Obviously, we're an aging population, so there is a lot of science around aging and longevity. And what we know is that everything's a muscle. So if you think of who you are as a muscle, you come into midlife as a habit of being a certain way, of thinking a certain way about yourself, having certain attitudes and beliefs around what I can do, what I can't do, how comfortable I am with change. If we adopt a growth mindset and learn how to find comfort in discomfort, anything is possible. And we can learn to be courageous and be adventurous and go out and meet new friends or start new hobbies or learn a new language or change careers, albeit obviously if we've had 50 odd years of doing things a certain way before us, we need to ensure we need persistence and determination. But anything is still possible if you have the right mindset, because the studies show if we think our intelligence is fixed, if we think our capabilities are fixed, then when we reach menopause, we'll keep on doing what we've always done because we think that's who we are. But if we're curious and adopt a growth mindset of I can learn, which the evidence supports, then the world's your oyster.
Oh, yeah, this is what we're calling breaking the box. This is what really this whole entire channel's about. It's going, I am, Amrita, I'm a 47-year-old woman. I am of this ethnicity. I'm of this occupation. And
Exactly.
I have, a husband and this many animals and whatever else, right? That's my box. And then
Yes.
I look outside the box and I go, you know what? I've always wanted to learn to play the piano, but I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Or I've always wanted to learn to speak, I don't know, French, right? Never tried it. But then I'm like, oh, I don't think I can. Look, it's really hard. So how do I empower myself? How do I start to stick my finger in the side of the box and put a little hole in it, and then maybe two fingers and then a hand, and then I can kind of crack the wall open and go to that next level? What do I do to do that?
There's a few different components. I think educating ourselves by understanding what's possible, like seeing other and also seeing other women's experience of doing that and not dying and making changes in their life. There is a definite part of education. There's also the making changes are often uncomfortable, or they evoke, we get very comfortable with our lives, and our brain craves the known because it feels safe, right? The primary focus of some structures within our brain is to keep us safe from harm, from threat, but it's all very, very perceptual. We've become so addicted to feeling comfortable. And also there's this thing which also comes up in midlife for some women around this, our emotional nature and it being seen as weak, that we fear feeling uncomfortable. We fear feeling feelings because it feels so overwhelming. And so we haven't been taught to feel powerfully and to be in relationship to our discomfort in a way that's non-threatening, so that we can sit with those feelings of discomfort as we're trying out new things. And in parallel, embedding or learning to think differently about ourselves, trying on new identity, trying on new thoughts for size. And so I've really worked with like an amazing couple of business coaches to really try on for size the beliefs that I can trust myself, that I will work it out, that I can do hard and uncomfortable and scary things and survive.
That's powerful.
And
Really powerful.
yeah, and I think it's the way we talk to ourselves. And this is where beliefs and identity, how we think about it around ourselves, this is around the mindset. It's not about to be strong. I only can be calm. I can't feel anything. And I only have to think positive thoughts. It's really about, I am human. I can do the hard things. I trust myself to learn. I trust myself to get support to learn when it feels too scary and I'm overwhelmed. I give myself permission to be human. And these are things that I have I've not been born with. I learnt them over time. I learnt them from other women. I got supported and seen and loved by other women. And I did them enough until they've become my living mantra. Everything's a muscle. New habits are a muscle. We shouldn't fear feeling. We should only fear not trying.
Absolutely. I want to flip the script on something. So I'm still feeling
Sure.
what you're saying here. I want to flip the script on sexuality. All right. So,
Bring it to me,
very dirty
girl.
word. I love it. Okay, I'm just watching everyone flick the channel up right now. Then I'm talking about sex, everybody. No, not quite.
No, this is really important.
Yeah, no, it is a very. I love taboo. I do taboo like nobody else. All right. So I want to talk about sexuality. Okay. So again, negative mindset. Ooh, oh, people
Yes.
having sex. Oh, jubbly, wrinkly, grey bits. That sort of stuff, right? Okay. But I'm looking at you, right? And you're looking great, girl. You're looking
Thanks,
great.
sweetheart.
All right. But here's the thing. I'll tell you what I'm admiring about you right now. All right.
Okay.
Your hair's great. Okay.
Yes.
You haven't tried to colour it. I'm not saying you shouldn't colour your hair, by the way. I'm just saying you haven't, right? So you've gone, you know what? I'm naturally grey and I'm going to own this. And you own it because you styled it and you're not trying to cover it over or pretend it's not there, right? I'm looking at your clothes and I'm like going, girl, you look hot. Like
Thank
seriously,
you. You're too
you're
kind.
walking around with an attitude that says, I'm not afraid to be me. I'm not afraid to be over 50. I'm not afraid to be post-menopausal, right? And I see you as a role model. I see you as if I looked at somebody and I'm going, you know what? When I hit over 50, that's what I want to look like. My hair's turning grey and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let it go grey. I'm going to be okay with that, right? And I'm going to not cover myself over and, pretend that I'm not who I am. So talk to me about that a little bit. Like,
Sure.
women can adopt a positive attitude and just
Absolutely.
accept themselves for who they're changing into, as opposed to pretending that it's not happening or being ashamed of it.
Absolutely. So thank you for my hair. And it was a process. It took a few years. I used to color my hair all the time, going to the hairdresser, spending hundreds of dollars every couple of months particularly when grey started coming through. And it definitely took a few years. But I decided to embrace my gray because I realized I had so much identity tied into my hair and it looking a certain way, and what it meant for me personally, once I started to let gray come through, like it was part of an identity crisis, but I love it now. And I do not say that I will never color my hair, because it's great to play. But when we're using something to hide our inner pain and fears, then there is an invitation here to explore that area.
I'm just curious. I just want to know. So, your sexual desire was waning. Was your
Yeah.
husband's sexual desire also waning? Was this a us problem or is it just a you problem?
No, he thinks I'm hot all the time. Today as well, he's amazing. I absolutely adore my husband, but there are times our desire, our libido doesn't always match. But back then it died. And because I really didn't understand myself fully to the extent that I do today, and I'm always learning more about myself. It caused a little bit of friction in our relationship because I didn't know how to navigate it. But I also, and I was just starting to resign myself to the fact that we're just going to have one of those companionable marriages, which was kind of, and I could almost feel myself like it was almost like the part of me was just giving up. And it's not to say sex is the be all and end all, but our relationship to our body as women, so fraught through history. You don't want to be too sexual, but you don't want to be a prude. Good girl versus bad girl. Women being raped and pillaged across history. It's a really fraught space in terms of what it means to be a woman, and particularly as an aging woman. It's like, what's sex got, or intimacy with yourself got to do with aging?
But tell me how you come back from this low libido. You were doing
Yeah,
a certificate in, sexual intimacy.
yeah.
Things are changing for you. You've got a husband who thinks you're hot. That's great, by the way. Congratulations. But okay, so
Yeah.
bring me back on this journey back. So things were going south.
I found this amazing woman and this coaching certification all around sex, love, and relationships. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing for myself personally, but also professionally. And so I started this year-long intensive journey around mindset, sexual re-education, self-love, self-acceptance, embodied trauma healing. And I'll use one very minor example. We had to do a lot of self-exploration as part of getting to know our own bodies, and meditations, breath work. And I think a lot of women associate self-pleasure with the idea of either getting off quickly, or it's like it's all about the orgasm, and it's about feeling pleasure from beginning to end. But we used to have to sit there or lie there for half an hour to an hour guided, and just learn to listen to our body and what our body needed. And there were times where it was literally, I was just stroking my arm and wrapping myself up in a blanket because I didn't feel anything at all. And I just remember having this aha moment when I stroked my skin, and this exquisite sensitivity burst from my arm. And I realized that I had resensitized my skin to touch. And I had this aha moment a number of times through this course where it was almost like I was retraining my body to become awake sexually, to have access to this vitality that we all have access to, but it requires education. It requires a self-acceptance. It requires a willingness to choose your own identity, because there is a lot of women still have this idea of, once I reach a certain age, like sex isn't important or self-intimacy isn't important. It's just something that's around kids and relationships. But it's like a fire inside of us, and it's a form of self-care, and it gives you an insight into how your body and mind and emotions are traveling at any given point in your life. And it freed me from giving an F about what anyone else thinks. One of the things with aging, use it or lose it. And the same thing, and that really applies to lubrication, pelvic floor tone, the ability to feel pleasure. It's very much a training mindset around joy, pleasure, and feeling alive inside of your skin. I've had so many women come to me and say, my libido's gone south. I just want things to go back to the way they were. And HRT can assist with that sometimes for a period of time. The thing I always say to women is that, one, I don't want you to go back to the way things are. Two, libido is overrated. The idea that this hormonal urge to be intimate is the only driver of an amazing, brilliant sex life is actually an outdated idea. One of the joys I have in being post-menopause is that I don't rely on my libido to be intimate with my husband. We set up dates and I could be feeling frumpy and exhausted and tired, or actually even just being shitty with my man. And we'll create a space and we'll bring ourselves to this space that's dedicated for the two of us. And we'll just start from where we are. And it might be that I just need to him to hold space and I need to do a bit of shaking or movement, or I just want a bit of a comforting cuddle for a bit. We create a space to be intimate in and just let it unfold. And then other times, we're up for it. So one of the wonderful things is that a woman's sexual response after menopause doesn't change, just the same as it is before. Libido can be the one that's a bit different. We have the opportunity to create spaces for intimacy. A woman in her 40s, in her 50s, in her 60s, in her 70s can still have amazing sex. In fact, I would even argue better sex than before menopause when you approach it with a whole of mind approach. So it's the head, the heart, and the yoni. I'll use the word yoni. It's almost like a whole of body experience, which can be multi-orgasmic, as opposed to when we're younger and we're just relying on the urge to self-pleasure or the urge to be with someone else as the only driver, because our ability to experience pleasure and to respond doesn't change with age. A lot of it is around education, attitude, and the trauma of relationship and intimacy that feeds into that. So the word mistress, what let me ask you this. When I say the word mistress, what does that evoke in you, Amrita?
Honestly, the word mistress just makes me think of a prostitute. That's really what it honestly, that, or some sort of dominatrix or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm sure there is a much more benign
yes.
but that's what goes on in my head.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I've often thought that as well. But back in the 16th and 17th century, the word mistress meant a woman with power and authority. And so what I want to support women to be is to have power and authority of her own inner world, of her identity, because sensuality and sexuality, yes, it's about intimacy and how to become orgasmic and all of that, but it's about your identity as a woman and feeling powerful in your skin and feeling at home and relaxed in who you are. It's all about potential. So being a mistress, claiming the language back of aging, taking aging back, and being irreverent and unapologetic for being behaving in a way that's really who you are on the inside, and you feel free to do it unencumbered by cultural expectations.
Claudia, there's so much that we've talked about, having a relationship with your pelvis and, differences in libidos and, but look, I've got to be honest. I mean, there may be a few people out there that really want to explore this, but are feeling that discomfort. They want the empowerment, they want the growth, but look, it's a bit of a leap to get started. How do we get started in a way that can make us feel comfortable with talking about this sort of thing?
Absolutely. First thing I want to do is totally normalize this discomfort. As I mentioned earlier, we just don't talk about these things, whether it's midlife, whether it's sex, or relationships. We don't talk about it. So I just want to normalize it. It's absolutely natural to feel a bit initially. You can always reach out to me in a manner that feels comfortable for you. Everything is always confidential. So feel free to reach out to me at claudia@orgasmicaging.com. You can reach me via Facebook or Instagram. You can always message me privately and we can have a chat. I just want to normalize it. It's very, very, very normal. I have a Facebook group, Orgasmic Aging. I think it has 2 A's because Facebook would not allow me to
I'll
use the
put that
word
in the
orgasmic.
show notes.
Yeah. So I had to get around Facebook there. There's a group called Fabulous is Ageless, where in there I run lots of, even if you want to see what I do and whether you like what I do, because at the end of the day, it's about women receiving the support they need that works for them to feel powerful in life. I do lots of free activities and meditations, and I take you through trainings online there. So come and check me out at Fabulous is Ageless as the Facebook group, but also Instagram me. You can message me, ask me any questions. I am an open book. My life is very imperfect, but I've had the most liberating experience of midlife. I want every woman to be standing in my shoes and feeling the same way that I do, because we all deserve it.
Absolutely.
Because
And
we
I think
deserve to
one thing
be.
we do well as women is that we do actually share information. So
Yeah.
once we get over our own initial discomfort,
Yeah.
and we find something great, we're
Yeah.
telling everybody about it.
Yeah.
So, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be too long before you're going to start running major events and workshops in this field, because once one person gets onto it, I think everybody's going to want to start getting onto it. So,
And the important thing with this is the girls coming after us, our daughters. I mean, I don't have children of my own. I have lots of girlfriends who have kids and daughters, like being the leader so that they see a better way of living and aging. And, God forbid, this bloody obsession with, fillers and Botox and surgery. We're beautiful. We're aging. Let's own this and celebrate life instead of wasting so much time and money, trying to fix things from the outside. Every woman's amazing.
so Claudia, just before we end our little chat today, I just want to give our viewers a few, parting tips, or I want you to really share some top wisdom with us. What have you got?
Sure. Okay. Here's a few. Perimenopause is the mother of all wake-up calls. It is the wake-up call of your entire life cycle to sort your shit out and be the woman that you really are inside. I think also, if you can hold on to the fact that your potential is unknown, your future potential is unknown. You do not know what you're capable of, so don't hold yourself back.
Beautiful. I love both that. That's great. That's great. I love it.
And you get to choose who you are. Personality isn't fixed. The evidence totally supports that. We have that now. So don't limit yourself by keeping on being your habit or who you've been up until now. Be adventurous, be playful, have fun.
Claudia, just want to thank you for speaking with us today. There has been so much information, so much dispelling of myths, and so much empowerment in what you've said. So I'm really looking forward to getting this interview out there and getting as many people to see it as possible, because this is life-changing. This is empowering. This is going to be some really wonderful stuff. So yeah, let's myth bust and let's make people's lives better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Amrita. I've loved it. Yes, women, it's up to us to change the narrative, and we have to get this message out there so that women don't settle for less than they deserve as they age. We've only got one life. Like, we have to grab it by the ovaries. But yeah, thank you so much.
Break the box.
Let's break the box.
Let's break the box, Claudia.
Let's break the box. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Claudia.
By going in, clear the noise. By going through the feelings, you'll make it out. By going